in the 50s, for a lot of people, it was a good era. And I grew up in the 50s. I was a young person, and it's 10 years from a child's perspective is a long time. In my case, from 1950 to 1960, I went from being a young child right through my teenage years, and all that unfolded. So it was a lot to digest. A lot happened in that era, not only with our family, which we at times were dysfunctional, but Mom managed to hold the family together. But teenage and high school years are, well, they can be good or they can be bad. I think mine as a whole were challenging, but they also were pretty cool too. It's in the time then that you were able to have all kinds of opportunities, and I thought the world was just unfolding in front of you, and it was. Cars were cool, and kind of the way they portray it today in that Happy Days era is pretty much accurate.
So what was your first car then?
It was a '49 Chevrolet, and I fixed it up where it was a pretty cool car, and it cost me $200. It was paid for, and my parents would let me drive under the condition that I paid for everything and that I didn't cause any trouble. Got reasonably good grades. So, but the car was a good thing. I mean, in that era, it's hard to imagine that the east side of town, well, didn't have that many people. You having a hot rod today, probably not a good idea. But all my friends had their cars, and we belonged to a hot rod club, which was fun. I played sports in high school. Didn't get the grades that I was capable of getting. Part of it, our environment at home wasn't the best. I think setting up a real good environment that's conducive to studying, where kids have their room and their desk and their resources there, so that they can do their homework and produce good work, is better. I didn't have any of that. The tools that we have today, the computers, are just amazing how much better you can do at school because of that. Anyway, but high school was generally a good time. Unfortunately, in my senior year, just before I graduated, our family got TB, and I spent 6 months in a TB hospital. The day I graduated, everybody was going out and having a good time, and I was getting ready to go to the TB hospital the next day. So that was quite frightening. And if you think about it, because TB was a dreaded disease, and there was uncertainty whether you would survive. Fortunately, it I felt good, and I never had to have surgery, and the medicine that they had worked on me, and I eventually was able to come home, and after a spell at home I was able to go on to college, and and get better, and eventually moved out of the house, and my life started to unfold, and so that's how that happened.
What college did you go to?
I went to Portland State, I went to Clark Junior College, and I went to Mount Hood, and later in life I took classes at other schools, so to further my education.
So, with your car, when you were in high school, did you go cruising? Was that a regular thing?
That was a regular thing.
And what street did you guys go cruising on?
We cruised all over. It could be downtown, and it could be on Sandy Boulevard, it could be on the east side, and oh yeah, there was probably way too much time spent on that, and academically it would have been more prudent to not do that and spend more time at home on studies. But yeah, I could tear a car apart and have it running that night. Probably not able to do that in with today's cars.
So what about, being in high school in the 50s? That's when rock and roll was
Right.
introduced. What did you think the first time you heard that?
Oh, I thought it was cool. I liked people like Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Elvis, all that stuff. That was pretty cool.
So what did you guys listen to before rock and roll then?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know whether I remember. I guess just the popular music of the times, and whatever was played on the radio. We didn't have a TV till long after I had moved out of the house. And not much of a radio. It wasn't anything like they have today for stereo and that kind of stuff. So, but
So growing up, did you listen to radio shows like on The Christmas Story?
oh yeah, there was all those mysteries and different radio things, and since we didn't have a TV, you was glued to the radio. That was more, I think, in the late 40s and early 50s. As a little kid, they had all the cowboy shows, and you were, first, second grade and everything. That was fun to listen to those things.
You never got a decoder ring that told you to drink Ovaltine?
Well, we had, that was a popular thing to send off for all these things, and they had prizes in cereal boxes and rings that glow in the dark, that type of thing. Little kids got excited about it. None of it was worth anything, but we did that, and dressed up like a cowboy and had cowboy guns and hat and a shirt, and when you were little. Our street had a lot of kids on it, and so there was a lot of activity there. We'd play games, hide and seek, and various things. Behind the house, there was a big farmer's field. For years, they didn't do anything with it, didn't plant any vegetables, but then the other half of it was all woods. So it wasn't very far to go into this large wooded area that had trails and trees and very mature fir trees. So that was fun. The kids in the block were able to run and play. And even in their backyards they had enough room where you could make up ball games and things like that with wiffle balls and whatever, and which was fun. So
wasn't there a story you told about playing a pickup ball game in the backyard and you used poppies?
yeah, well, my mom was always into plants, and the poppies flowers are red flowers, and they're pretty. But when they go to seed, they leave a large seed pod. So we'd pick those off, and we'd have some kind of a plastic bat or something, and make-believe ball games, and we could, if you plastered that thing on the side of the house, it was a home run. I don't think my mom was terribly pleased on that, but you know, and then you could see how well you hit it because it left a great big mark on the side of the house. So, and the house had 2 stories, so you could make believe that you drove it out of the darn park, double-decker home run. But then eventually as we got bigger, and we would be a little more adventuresome, and it seemed like we always found golf balls. I think I might have been by then a teenager, and I think I drove a golf ball from out of the backyard clear to Stark Street, which is about 2 blocks. So I don't think we thought too much. Well, the repercussions of it hit somebody.
Where the heck did you find golf balls?
Well, my dad golfed.
Okay.
And I don't know. Maybe these were ones that were calls, no good, slices in them. I don't remember. I think Gary by then was old enough he'd pitch the golf ball to me and then tee off on it and hit that with a baseball bat. Holy moly. You were just amazed at how far the thing would go. And we had one neighbor that was, I don't know, they were about 6 houses down the block. Long ways. Nobody liked them. They were really crabby bunch of people. And so kids would always raise hell with them. I thought, oh man, if that golf ball dropped in their yard and hit them or something, then we didn't do that too often. I think that nothing came of that. And I remember doing it, but I don't remember doing it much more than a couple of times, just because of, holy criminy.
I remember growing up, you always had the phrase, and Pokalati has pigeons. What's the backstory there?
Well, at the dead end, there was this old guy that had lived there forever in this old farmhouse. And his name was Pokalati. He was Italian. And in the beginning, this was before the whole road got finished on 109th. But even later, there was this old dirt road between the farmer's field in back of our house and our house. So it was like an easement, and that was Pokalati's road that went all the way to his house, which was about 3 blocks long, something like every bit of that, maybe 4. But anyway, he had a number of acres that ran along Burnside to down into our street, you know, and he had cows and chickens and, oh my God, everything you could think of. And he stored crap. As he got really old, his house was really dilapidated and deteriorated. And so it was a magnet for kids to just raise hell. And on top of it, he had 200 or 300 pigeons that would just congregate on his roof. And every bit of that, there might have been more than 200 or 300 pigeons. And that was like that for years. And everybody in the area knew who Pokalati was. And whether it was my friends over on Burnside, Ron Henry would shoot the pigeons with his BB gun, and as I got older, you could get the pigeons flying around the house in a circle, all of them, and they were so thick that you could throw a rock up in the air and knock one right out of the air. And I had done that. Well, I'm kind of being devilish, but that's just the way teenagers were. Well, Pokalati would be there with his shotgun, and suddenly you're looking out, and here he's peeking out through his brush, and it scared the crap out of you, so you'd be off running, run down the street, make sure he didn't shoot you with rock salt or something. But yeah, that's a true story. But anyway, Pokalati has pigeons. Well, that was just like a foregone conclusion. Those pigeons were there for as long as I ever lived there, and probably long after. So eventually he passed away, and one of the neighbors befriended him, and as he got older they would take him food and make sure he was cared for, which was nice. I don't know how long he lived, but he had to be well into his 90s. And he had a produce market downtown, so he would take this old car that had been converted into kind of a flatbed truck, and he'd drag all this old produce home and throw to his pigs and chickens and whatever he had. There was rumors that even in the wintertime the cows would be in his house. And I don't remember for sure on that one, but the house and him looked like something out of the 1850s. But it was kind of a sad story as you get older, and it's certainly inappropriate for kids to tease somebody like that, but we did. I probably wasn't the worst, but I probably wasn't the best either, but it was just a fun place to go up and, you know, what's happening up there. I don't remember when they tore that house down and built other small houses in there. Probably about the time that Gary graduated from high school in that mid-60s or something. Yeah, considering everything, I think I had a pretty good childhood. I enjoyed the street that we lived on because there were so many things to do and possibilities. My parents would allow me a lot of leeway. As long as I was a good kid. And by and large, I didn't drag home any bad things to my parents. My mom had enough problems. She didn't need me giving her hell. So that's the way I thought about it.